Good morning, everybody.
Yeah,
Mark,
how's it going?
going well. Let me see. I got to manage all these people. We get more people joining here just shortly.
Uh-oh.
Manage. I got to manage everybody. So I'm going to mute everybody. I think everybody already is. Everybody's muted except for you and I. So, um, like I said, we're about a minute away. We get more people pouring in here.
Cool.
Thanks, Mark, for doing this. By the way, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You're up in. It looks like you're up at Super Training from the looks of things.
Yeah, we're in the podcast room here.
Yes.
Kill anybody today with some of your
I'm
recommendations?
sure I did. I'm sure I killed 1,000 people by telling them to eat food we've been eating for millions of
We
years.
got to get you. We definitely have to get you locked up in jail.
I know. I'll see if we can get Joel Furman to make a citizen's arrest and haul me in
You've been you've
prison
been
or
hurting a lot of
somewhere.
people. They've been getting rid of skin disorders and autoimmune disorders and all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Terrible.
A lot of these people are here. So Mark, let me just tell you. So we've got, we'll get 30, 50, 60, 80 people. I don't know how many people end up showing today. We got quite a few. And they're all on mute, but they're going to be typing in questions. So I'm gonna feed, I'm gonna go sort through them and try to select the ones that are appropriate. But I just want to welcome you guys. If you guys don't know Mark is someone that I've got to know over the last couple of years. Just a wonderful, wonderful person that's been doing some great things. Mark has been a successful athlete. He was a professional wrestler at one point, and then I know he got into powerlifting where you lifted just a hell of a lot of weight. One of the few people to put 1,000 pounds on your back and squat it. I've had 1,000. I actually walked out 1,000 pounds in Iraq when I used to do strongman, and it's not a comfortable feeling at all.
Sure you did.
And it's just that I don't know if you ever. I mean, I used to try to do rack pulls with 1,000 pounds. I ended up a couple times passing out from
Damn. Yeah, brutal.
there. So anyway, it's you pushed your body hard. You've done that. You've been extreme. You went from being kind of in a tight spot financially, and then turned it around and became a wonderful entrepreneur and been wildly successful, and have inspired tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And I've really been just really very excited to see that you stepped into helping people with their health, as you kind of say, you go forward in your career. So anyway, welcome, Mark Bell, guys. You guys, I'm going to just let you guys put in your questions. I know we got some people in here that are in the fitness space. I mean, Mark is one of the true experts in the world. He's interacts with the top people in the world, the most, craziest freaks of nature that you've ever seen, that walk through his gym every day. And so anyway, welcome, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been riding out the carnivore diet for a while now. You encouraged me long ago, and we had you on the show, and I took up your challenge and kind of have been, floating around with meat for a while. But even before that, I've been a meat-based athlete for a very, very long time. And I would say probably since I was about 15, I've been on some sort of nutrition plan that included meat on my plate at nearly every meal, even when I was kind of being a little bit more destructive with my health and getting my bulk on back in the powerlifting days. Almost every meal I had during the day had meat or eggs, animal products involved. And then, at night I would have like ice cream or pizza to kind of top off the calories to try to really be, big and heavy, and to kind of, I competed in every weight class from 181 pounds as a kid all the way up to super heavyweight, and explored all the different weight classes, and really was just trying to find like how I can be the absolute strongest. So back then I did eat carbohydrates and I did eat other things, but I was still being fueled by meat.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ed Cohen, as he ran up the weight classes and just decimated everybody in his sight. That's pretty. And your brother Chris, as well, I'm sure you all know, he obviously started doing this, and I know he points back to years ago when he kind of did a short trial of carnivore red meat with Ron Co. 20 some years ago. He talks about that, and then kind of went away from that. But he's discovered that, particularly later in life, you look at the audience here, we don't have 15, 16-year-old kids in here. We've got, a bunch of people that have been around for a while, and, you see And as you know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, you're like kind of early 40s right now. You're kind of what, about 43 or something like that?
Yeah, I'm 43. And as I was mentioning earlier, I've been kind of on a meat-based plan for a long time, a huge proponent of a ketogenic style diet as well. So anyone that has tried the carnivore diet or has tried your challenge and maybe has stumbled or maybe has stumbled upon some of my information or my brother's information, and you tried the carnivore diet, but you're like, man, I just can't quite get the hang of it. You might want to try keto first, just because the options, you have a little bit more options. You can make keto treats, you can make fat bombs and some of these different things. I don't advocate that you eat those things all the time, but it might be an easier message for somebody to get on board with in the beginning. And whatever way we can get you on board, or whatever way we can get your direction of you losing weight and getting better health, I think is a positive. So whatever way you got to get here is going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick through some of the questions. It says, Mark, what's the most unexpected benefit you've had so far while doing a carnivore diet?
I would say that, one of my favorite benefits of a carnivore diet is the fact that it doesn't feel that hard at the stage that I'm at. Now, it could feel very hard for somebody who's new to dieting, but for me, it doesn't feel that difficult. And how lean I'm able to stay on the diet is a huge bonus without really a lot of cardiovascular training. I run here and there, and I do some different things for some cardiovascular training, but I'm not spending 45 minutes, on a treadmill or 45 minutes on a Stairmaster or anything like that. So the probably the best benefit of it has been just that, is that it's just not that difficult. I get to eat foods I really enjoy. Sometimes I'm like, this is a diet? Like, you kidding me? Like, I'm eating, omelets with cheese and bacon and things like that in it, or eating a ribeye. Like, I'm never upset about eating a ribeye. I'm always looking forward to it. And so I'd say that that's probably been one of the best benefits. Another benefit has been the change from keto to carnivore in muscle mass, and just feeling like a little harder, hard to really describe, but and also a little bit more energy. And I don't know if that has to do with the protein turning into cheesecake in my body, or or what it has to do with, but I feel really, really good. And a side benefit that I was never expecting was, I've been walking for the last 7 years. As soon as I started to take more control over my health, I've been walking, and I walk every single day. I walk multiple times a day. I promote 10-minute walks. I think it's a great way for people to get started. And I would have never thought in a million years that I would be running. So out of nowhere, I started running. Maybe a little bit similar to your story, where you started doing these explosive movements and now you're competing, in a world championship for rowing. It's like, it's crazy. You were a big, bulky guy, 300 pounds, doing Highland games, still a good athlete, still an explosive athlete. But man, like, you wouldn't have been able to move the way you're able to move now. And that was, how long ago were you 300 pounds? 15, 20 years ago?
I was 290, 300. I'd say when I was 44, so about 9 years ago was the last time that's when I started to.
I just imagine you feel crazy, like just so much better than you did in your probably 30s and 40s even
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, I'm just so just Lee says, you look amazing for 43, just a comment there for you. So to kind of,
Right?
anyway, but there's a couple questions. I'm going to combine these because there are a lot of people talking about Stan's, vertical diet, and where do you see the role of carbohydrates with regard to putting on mass versus being lean versus performance, and what kind of things might you consider? Just that's combining a couple questions into one.
Yeah. Yeah. Stan Efferding has no idea what he's talking about. Let's just leave it at that. Now, Stan has been a good friend for a long time. He's got a lot of great information. And if you look at his diet, he's also promoting a meat-based diet. Every meal you got, you're going to have, some sort of like hamburger meat or steak or something like that in there. He has a tremendous diet. He's got tremendous information. He wants you to have foods that are going to be easy to digest. His diet's called the vertical diet, for those people that aren't aware. And I think it's a fantastic diet for someone that's trying to get like bigger and stronger. one thing I would say that it might be a little bit difficult with, might have a little hard time for some people. It might be difficult for them to continue to lose weight because of just kind of the influx of carbohydrates that are in the diet. I think that it could make it difficult for a heavier person to control themselves with the amount of with the amount of fat and carbohydrates that they eat. I think that when people hear Stan talk about the vertical diet and they hear him talk about the monster mash and stuff like that, they skim over the fact that he's telling you, look, man, you need to kind of regulate the amount of fat that you're going to consume because we're eating a good amount of carbohydrates. And so somebody could easily make that mistake. As long as they're following exactly what Stan says, they're going to get amazing results. I love the diet. I've used his diet many, many times. I'll use it again in the future. It's pretty simple. There's some small amount of fruit in there. There's a little bit of veggies in there, and there's meat, rice, potatoes. I highly recommend that you check out the vertical diet. Huge proponent of Stan Efferding and everything that he's got going on.
Yeah, I like Stan. I think he's doing a good guy. And again, many people are on this diet for health reasons. This is a question, a little shifting gear. This is a lady, this is Barbara Becker, says, I lost a lot of muscle when I was a vegan. I've been carnivore for about 2 months, just joined gym. What's the best way to begin building back muscle? I'm a 63-year-old woman, and I know you've got your mother-in-law doing some stuff. So how would a woman who's lost a lot of muscle go to sort of rebuild herself up, particularly? I guess she's
you know, we just need some resistance training. You know, we need some good old-fashioned resistance training. So we don't need to complicate anything too much. There's in my opinion, there's kind of two main ways to get the muscle to grow. One is to put it under some constant tension, you know, where you do a set of like 10 to 12 reps in a controlled fashion. And then there's a lot of methods that can kind of spin off of that as well. You can do, you know, drop sets and things of that nature to really try to exhaust the muscle. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to send a message to the body, send a message to our muscles like, hey, man, you know, we're tearing you apart and we want you to rebuild every single time we work out. So two main ways of doing that. One is through controlled movements, bodybuilding type stuff. You can even just, you know, look up bodybuilding workouts. I think they're fantastic for hypertrophy. No one knows how to grow quite like a bodybuilder. I mean, these guys are, and these men and women, have tremendous physiques, even those that are natural. And then in addition to that, you might want to look into some powerlifting. You might want to look into something that is going to have some explosive movement, something that's going to have some heavy weights in there. That's going to help increase bone density. There's not a lot of reasons to feel that you're going to get hurt doing these movements and stuff. It's a matter of, you know, maybe finding the right coach or exploring the right types of exercises and movements. So maybe instead of a regular bar for deadlifts, maybe you utilize a trap bar. Maybe instead of a regular squat, you do a box squat, you know, things like that. But you really want to try to get yourself over the fear of handling heavy weights. Handling heavy weights is going to be critical, and you want to figure out a way for you to handle heavy weights and whatever that means for you specifically. It could mean that you do like farmer's carries. You could do sled drags. I mean, there's a lot. You could push your car, you know, it sounds kind of wild or crazy, but literally anything that you can think of that's going to feel safe or feel good for you, I'd advise you to do it. Anything that doesn't feel good and feels like crap and you go to try to do it and you're like, man, I don't know about that. Just don't do it. Just don't pursue it. And maybe try to learn it at some other time, but you can even pick up a heavy medicine ball. You know, heavy for you could be 30 pounds. Pick up a 30-pound med ball and walk around with it for a few minutes. I mean, these things are going to, especially if you've never trained before, you could literally go out in your front yard and move around some rocks and gain some muscle from that.
Awesome. So here's another one. Michelle Meixner says, Mixer, I'm not sure how you say your name, Michelle, but what are your thoughts on lifting to failure, something like Fred Hahn's slow burn style? So it's kind of I guess it'd be sets to full failure. What are your thoughts on that versus, you know, a more programmed workout?
So Lee Haney, you know, one of the most famous bodybuilders of all time. I think he has more titles than anybody in the history of bodybuilding. Lee Haney, you know, was famous for saying, we're trying to stimulate, not annihilate. So going to failure can be effective, but for how many sets are we really talking about? So I would say that almost almost everybody in my circle, most of the people are in agreement of like, hey, you know what? Like you got to kind of get close to that in order to get hypertrophy and all in order to stimulate change. You need to push your body to a certain limit. Um, Going to failure, I think, is okay, but I personally am a little bit more of a fan of a technical limit. A technical limit would be you're deadlifting and you're doing a set of 8, and on set number 6 or rep number 6 rather, your butt shoots up, your back rounds over, and it's very difficult to kind of lock the deadlift out, and you don't proceed any further because you're like, you know what, like I'm just gonna quit while I'm ahead. That was a really good set. I wanted 8 reps really badly, but it's just not in the cards for today. And then that's where you kind of want to, be smart and kind of move on from the exercise. But in general, going to failure is fantastic. And normally, under normal conditions, you're not going to hurt yourself with it when the reps are kept high. If we keep the reps kind of high, then the percentage of weight that we're going to use is low. And also, if we use controlled movement, you're going to run out of steam a little bit faster. So that's not the standard way, of some, like maybe CrossFitters don't train that way, throwers and things like that. People that are trying to be real explosive, they don't really train that way. But when you're trying to train explosively, in my opinion, that's where you might be more susceptible to injury, especially when you're not used to training. So the safest way to work out, in my opinion, although I still think you should be able to have the attributes to be able to sprint and do things explosively, but the safest way to train, I believe, without question, is to utilize some bodybuilding. And those forced reps and going to failure can be really, really effective. I would just say that you only want to go to failure just a couple of times in a workout. So if let's say you're doing a back workout, let's say you do 3 sets of lat pull downs, well, you're only going to go to failure on 1 set of those. Then you proceed over to the seated row and you do another 3 sets. Well, you're only going to, do 1 set to failure. That might be all you do for the day. So you did 6 sets, but you did 2 sets to failure. That might be just fine for a workout if you worked really hard on it.
Yeah, and I think Ed Cohn was pretty famous for saying he'd always leave 1 in the tank, 1 rep in the tank. He never pushed himself to complete failure in training anyway. So
Absolutely.
here's a question that somebody asked about. Let me lost. We got a whole bunch of questions. Let me find it here. Hang on a second. Leo's asking, do you think that eliminating plant toxins, has helped you more, or was it just a reduction in carbs? Do you find it's full carb reduction, or is it certain, plant compounds that seem to provide benefit to you personally?
I can eat, from a septic tank. So like, I don't think the elimination of really anything has done much for me other than eliminating processed foods, because I just have a tendency to be a fat boy and I just want to eat them. So for me personally, I've always had kind of a cast iron stomach, and I can kind of eat anything, and I've never noticed a negative impact. And I've never like done a squat and been like, oh my God, it must have been the broccoli I had last night that's hurting my knee. I've never had complications like that. However, I think that everybody's body can be different, and people's bodies can be kind of complicated, and they do. Obviously, people have autoimmune disorders and things like that. But I don't think autoimmune disorders. I don't think they even come from that kind of stuff. I don't think they come from vegetables. I think our problems come from at a young age developing very bad habits. I think that people don't sleep enough. I think that people don't hydrate enough. I think that it's a cascade of a lot of issues, and then people get way behind, and then perhaps the vegetables are causing inflammation on top of the things that they already have pre-existing. But in general, I think everybody would be in agreement with this, is that America is very unhealthy, and in order for us to fight our way out of the deficit that we're in terms of our health, we have to go way the other way, which we shouldn't really have ever had to do a lot of these things, in my opinion. I think that if you lived a life where you just simply didn't consume a lot of fast food, didn't have snacks, didn't have dessert, and didn't eat fried foods, and you ate a good amount of protein, I think that you probably would have never had to be on a diet, and that you wouldn't really have to worry about managing your health. Because I'm not a believer, at least not yet anyway, it doesn't seem like there's enough evidence that any sort of diet, whether it be veganism or keto diet or or a carnivore diet, it doesn't appear at the moment that anything's going to give us an extra 5% or 10% life. However, it does appear that if you follow the rules and you do live a life that allows you to have full metabolic access of what your body is supposed to be able to do, that you could have 100 years of really, really good living. And I think that that's amazing, because I think that a lot of people are not necessarily living longer, but I think that people are dying longer. We're just kind of hanging in there for a longer period of time, but then we're not able to even remember our own life. Your memory gets erased when you have dementia and Alzheimer's, and it's just a lot. It just sucks. It sucks that people are having to suffer, and hopefully by utilizing some of these techniques and utilizing some of the information out there, we can live a longer and stronger life.
Yeah, I think that's a great sort of way to look at things. I like that, dying longer, because we do have people that sit there and they literally, I mean, the last 20 years are basically slow death. Jeff is asking about health issues and depression kept me on the couch for years. Any tips for getting off the couch and becoming an athlete?
Man. Well, so you can start in the kitchen, or you can start, outside with a walk. But you got to start somewhere. I think that the fat and lazy thing, I think is an unfortunate perspective on people that are obese and people that are overweight. They already know that they're not moving enough, but they don't feel good enough. They don't feel good about it. Maybe it would be similar to me being forced to read every day. I suck at it. Like, I don't want to do it. I'm not motivated. It has no it's not interesting to me. The benefit of knowledge, of reading a bunch of books, certainly interests me, but the trouble that it is for me to read, I'm like, screw that, I don't want to do that. So I understand where a lot of people are at when it comes to, I can empathize with them and I can understand, but you do have to figure out a way to get started. And that's probably going to be the hardest thing. But if we try to make some sense of some stuff, like what's something that is easy, like how do we define easy? Well, easy would be something that you can do. So if you weighed 400 pounds and you said, man, I'm really in a bad way, I don't feel good about myself, my wife hates me, I hate my job, I don't like my wife, I don't like this, I don't like that, and you don't really find a lot of satisfaction in a lot of things, well, I could say, hey, like, what are some things that are going to be fairly easy for you to get done? And I want things to be so easy for people where they're like, give me a break, dude. Like, give me a real challenge. Like, that sounds not a piece of cake. That sounds too easy, right? And so where I would start with most people is say, hey, man, can you get outside? Can you have any time in your day to where you could get outside? You got some time, minutes in your day where you can get outside. Why don't you try to go for a walk? Try to go for a 10-minute walk. And then you want to find things that are easy and simple, because those things should be repeatable. Maybe a 10-minute walk is like kind of hard for you at the moment, but that's okay. As long as it's simple enough that you can repeat it, then we're going to be on the right path. Maybe through your walking or maybe through your diet, you're going to start to exercise more, or through your exercise, you'll start to pay attention to your diet more. But the main thing I would say is, like, you figure out, like, what are the things that are triggering you to even be on your couch in the first place? Is it your Netflix account? Is it your cable? Like, stop paying for it. Stop purchasing it. You're right. Like, you're streaming Netflix or whatever it is. It costs you a lot more than $9 a month or whatever it is, $8 a month. It's costing you your life, and you're not paying attention to that. So maybe rather than having that be such a detrimental cost, maybe you only buy like DVDs so you can watch stuff on your own time when you really want to, in your own way, and you can channel your energy towards some more positive stuff. So that would be it. Extreme times call for extreme measures, and I would maybe even consider just completely throwing your couch in the fucking garbage. Take that thing and hurl it out.
Mark, somebody asking your thoughts on blood flow restriction training. Have you messed with that much, and what are your thoughts on its utilization?
I think it can be great for somebody that has like an injury. You wrap up an injured area. Let's just say it's your hamstring, and you would wrap your leg up with, say, like something like a knee wrap, and you wrap it super, super tight. And it's pretty crazy. Like it hurts really bad. Then what you would do from there is you maybe walk around a little bit and maybe do a couple sets of leg curls. You can't have it on for very long because it's on there tight and it's really restricting the blood. But in terms of it being like something magical for like growth, I haven't seen anything that shows that it really does a whole lot. But it does appear, and from my own personal usage of the technique, it's absolutely fantastic if you have an injury.
Okay, somebody's asked me about your salt intake. Are you adding additional salt? Are you using salt for training? What are your thoughts on sodium and salt?
I'm actually injecting salt right into my veins nowadays. I've been doing that quite a bit. What's hard is, some of the salt, some of the pellets of the salt are so big that it's very lumpy and it's hard to get in there. I'm fucking with everybody, by the way. I like salt. I use salt quite a bit. I put it in my coffee. I like utilizing it on food a little bit better than I like to just randomly throw it in water and drinks and stuff, just because I feel like things go together better with food. Like even like vitamins and minerals and things like that. Like I utilize some supplementation. I utilize some like magnesium and some vitamin D and some vitamin K and stuff like that. And I always think that I don't usually take those things fasted. I normally will take them with a meal. So yeah, I add salt, but I really don't have a good idea of how much salt that I consume. I was doing my bodybuilding show, and I was talking over things with my coach, Hani Rambad. He was like, how much salt do you think you have in a day? Because, the water manipulation is a thing in bodybuilding. And I was like, I don't know. I think I have about 10 grams a day. Because I started trying to like add it up. And he was like, holy fuck. He's like, 10 grams a day. He's like, you're gonna die. I'm like, no, I actually feel really good. So anyway, what he did is he had me just reduce the amount of salt a little bit for periods of time. He wanted to see what I looked like when I tried different amounts of salt. But I told him, I was like, man, my workouts are really, they're not going anywhere, like they don't feel great. And so he's like, all right, we'll bring the salt back up. So yeah, I would, if I was to guess, I would say I'm probably somewhere between 8 and 10 grams of salt almost every single day. How about yourself? Any idea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really track it. I take quite a bit of salt. I've been messing around. Rob Wolf sent me some of that limit stuff, that element stuff. So I've been trying that in the morning, and I do feel better, from a performance standpoint. Just
do you track anything?
Just performance, really. I eat to sort of intuition, and then I kind of track performance and a little bit look, because that's a metric I really care about, quite honestly.
Yeah.
There's a question here. It's kind of probably an obvious question, but Leah asked, "What are your thoughts on steroid use and muscle growth? Does it work?"
That's great. Yeah, it works. It works tremendously. Anabolics are a very interesting thing. And I think they change a lot of what we know about nutrition, I think. But the weird thing about steroids is that they don't like multiply on top of themselves, like let's say, Dr. Baker, that let's say you can squat 500 pounds on the box you can do like 10 reps or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just say you can do like 8 reps, right? And if you took anabolics, you might be able to squat 550 for 15 reps, or you might squat 700 off the box and be like, holy shit, that really did a lot for me. And you might gain 20 pounds. But here's something to kind of think about is what if you gain 20 pounds anyway? Like, what if you gain 20 pounds naturally? Now you would automatically, not automatically, but you would end up being a little stronger anyway, just from the weight gain. But steroids, they don't just put body weight on you. They're going to put muscle mass on you. But once you get that first burst, you're not going to gain 20 pounds of muscle and then 4 months later gain another 20 pounds of muscle and then 4 months later get, so it doesn't multiply on itself. Once you play the steroid card, that's the card that you play, and it's over with. And so, like, for myself, I've been on anabolics since I was about 25 years old. I've been on and off of them, but you don't go from, before I took them, I did a 500-pound raw bench press. After I took them, it took me to 578. So it doesn't really, if it multiplied on top of itself all the time, I would have benched 900 pounds, right? So it can give you a nice boost. Going from 500 to 578 is a huge boost. But it doesn't do a lot of the stuff that I think everyone just thinks it's this magical, like, recovery formula, and that it's going to, help you gain like 80 pounds of muscle and you're going to be shredded out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, and you're looking at powerlifting numbers, it seems like the guys on steroids are doing about 10 to 15% more over what the guys that are supposedly, not seeing it. So that's in 578 on top of 500 is about 15%. So that kind of goes with that pretty well.
Right.
Somebody asked about, what do you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger becoming an advocate for plant-based diets?
I don't understand, what his interest in that was, but maybe just, maybe he honestly believes in it. I think sometimes people are just like not informed all that well. I hear people like, I don't get mad about veganism because I don't know anything about it really. I haven't really looked into it. I don't have any interest in being a vegan. But I don't dislike it. I've never tried it. I don't know a lot about it, but I really, with Arnold and his career and kind of how he built himself up, it was a surprise to me. I'll always be a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. Doesn't matter what he does at this point. Even if he was to knock up his maid and have a baby with him, it wouldn't bother me. I'll always be a fan of Arnold, but yeah, it was kind of a weird choice. I was like, oh, that's weird. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I think I think he's helping his friend James Cameron out a little bit. But here's a question Rick's asking about frequency of training. How often should I train a body part? He said, notice when I stopped pushing to failure, I went for more frequency, I got better gains. Any thoughts on frequency of training?
That's outstanding. The information on frequency has been something that is fairly new to me. It's fairly new-ish in powerlifting. Where it's not new is in like Olympic weightlifting, where they've utilized like squat every day programs and things like that. And when some of that started to come into powerlifting, I was like, this is insane. No one's going to get any gains from this. Like, people are just going to get hurt. And that started kind of coming around over the last 10 years, and people have gotten insanely strong. I can't even tell you how many 900-pound deadlifts I've seen, over the last several years. And a lot of it has to do with increased frequency. There's people that are benching and squatting, and the female lifters are a great example of this, because females under normal circumstances aren't as neurologically efficient as males, meaning like they can't tap into their 1 rep max quite as well as a male athlete, because a male athlete sometimes is more explosive. And so like a female can take a similar weight that a guy could from a percentage standpoint. Let's just say it's 90%. A girl can do like 8 reps sometimes with 90%, whereas a guy is lucky if he can do 1.5 reps or so, before he kind of passes out from it. And because of that, females, they can train more frequently. But then what have we seen with the females? The improvement from the males has been great in powerlifting. But the improvement from females in powerlifting and CrossFit and Olympic lifting has skyrocketed. Like, it's absolutely insane, where like I'm almost embarrassed to even look at these girls lifting nowadays, because I'm like, I was going to post that I did this same weight, but now that a 140-pound girl or 123-pound girl like Steffi Cohen posted that she did 505 for 6 reps on a deadlift or something. I'm not making my post anymore, you know? So training frequency is absolutely fantastic. And if you have a body part that you just want to like quote unquote bring up, you have weak shoulders or just small shoulders or sloped shoulders, and you want them to be like wider, you want them to be stronger. Gaining a work capacity to be able to train them more would be really advantageous. It'd be really smart. Same thing with like just wanting to improve your bench. Work your way into being able to train your bench 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to train it that long forever. There's got to be kind of an end date to everything. And you just want to build up that accumulation. And then you also need to know how to do that, which can be kind of confusing and kind of difficult. So you would need a coach. You can go to someone like a Chad Wesley Smith has a lot of great information on that. My friend Jesse Burdick has a lot of great programming on things like that. But the main thing is when it comes to training in general, no matter what you're training for, you always have to be prepared for whatever it is you're about to do next. And I think that's a missing element in training in general. So if you're like, oh shit, I want to try that. Mark said to train, you know, the same body part 4 or 5 days a week. It's going to be a period of time. You're going to go from once a week to twice a week for a few weeks, then 3 times a week for a few weeks, and then 4 times a week for a few weeks. And then that 5 times a week, how long are you going to be able to handle that for? You know, you're only going to be able to do that for a real short period of time. Then once you spin back out of it, that's where your strength would be through the roof, because you have basically beaten the shit out of yourself over a period of time. And that's where you'll get something like super compensation will happen, where your body will start to adapt to all the training that you did.
Yeah, one comment I'll make, and I've always been a kind of a guy that thrived on higher volume, higher frequency, frequent body part training. I've always liked that. And you know, my body's responded well. And when I'm able to do that, I feel great. And I think performance gets better for me. I've found that the diet, certainly the carnivore diet, has helped with recovery quite a bit to where I can do that more often. Someone's asking about intermittent fasting, and I know you sort of do this quite a bit. I think I even had a post on that today showing your crazy shredded veiny arms. But I mean, do you think that intermittent fasting in combination with carnivore will accelerate results? And I'm sure I assume that's regarding weight loss. What feeding window do you recommend?
So, you know, I think I'm not a fan of like counting or tracking anything. Like it just confuses me or annoys me. Like even with fasting, I'm like, man, how many hours is that? 10, 12, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm like, just to hell with it. Like I don't want to sit there and try to figure a lot of it out. So when it comes to fasting, what I've done is I just have tried to shrink down the eating window, but I also am always trying to be reasonable. And I think this is where people might get messed up with their diet. You know, if you start getting like irrational with your diet and you start thinking that if I eat outside of this eating window, I'm going to get fat, you know, like we start making up ridiculous things in our head. If I eat a carbohydrate, I'm going to get fat. If I go off the diet, I'm going to get fat. And then you think you're a big failure, and it just perpetuates this kind of like downward spiral. And you got to be very, very careful with these things. So the way I like to view eating in general is kind of in a 3 to 5 day window. If you fasted on Monday, let's say you did a 20-hour fast on Monday, and let's say you did an 18-hour fast on Tuesday. Well, now it's Friday, and you say, screw it, because urges and cravings and stuff hit you. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, boom, downward spiral. You're just eating donuts and eating pizza, having drinks with your friends and stuff. And then you're like, okay, I got to get back to fasting. And then you do the same thing the next week. Well, the fasting is not working. And I think people need to be cautious of that, and they need to pay attention to that. If you can handle fasting, that's fine. But what I do for myself is I usually just try to have a small eating window that is a lot less math for me. I'm like, hey, about a 2 to 4 hour eating window would be great. If I don't feel like I can get my calories in, and if I'm like, holy shit, like I'm actually really hungry, then I will, I might break the fast. I might expand the eating window. I might say screw fasting for the next couple days. Fasting is a great weapon. It's a great thing to utilize. But what I'd like everyone to think about when they're trying these diets is, you know, if you start pulling everything away, then what are you left with? You know, you're going to be left with feeling lethargic. You're going to be left with hating Dr. Baker because you're like, that meat diet doesn't work, man. But it's because you ate so much less and you're not listening to the message enough. You're not hearing the full story. When you try this diet out, if you're new to this diet, don't mess with fasting. Just eat. Eat meat, eat eggs, maybe throw in some butter, maybe throw in some bone broth, but make sure you eat. Make sure you're really well nourished. Get used to the food first. Now, if you want to mess around with some fasting, I found some great benefits with fasting, but I just really recommend just trying to shrink down that eating window, and maybe a way to work into it, as I mentioned with training earlier. You always want a way to work yourself into these things rather than just trying them out of nowhere. You know, maybe you first start out with just saying, you know what, I'm just going to not eat 2 hours before bed, and I'm going to skip breakfast. Like that would be an amazing place to start for your fast. And then I think what happens on the carnivore diet, and I think where a lot of people have naturally stumbled upon fasting, I think that's even more effective than actually just like trying to start fasting out of nowhere. You end up with what I've been kind of calling it inadvertent fasting, because you're filling up your cup every single day of your protein requirement. You're filling up your cup of your energy requirement with your fats. And then you're filling up magnesium and zinc and B vitamins. You're filling up all these cups all day long. So you don't need anything else. You have everything that you need. You know, it's almost like the kind of afterglow effect of like sex. If you have sex, that urge is hopefully taken care of, at least for a little bit there, and you don't have to think about it as much anymore. And I think the same thing happens with your food. You get rid of a lot of these cravings and urges because you satisfied everything that you need. You have everything that you need for the moment, and then you can continue onward without food. And that's kind of what my brother has done. He doesn't really try to fast all that often, but he might eat breakfast and then not eat for 8 hours, and then he'll eat again, things like that. And I think that that's where you're at with the diet. Is that right? Oh, I might have lost you.
Sorry, I muted myself because there were dogs in the background. But I'm going to add on to this a little bit, Mark, just about, because people often ask me this question when we talk about, because I understand you do a lot of your training first thing in the morning. I know you're up beating the sun out there in the gym at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, getting your training on. How do you find that timing your meals with training? I mean, do you do a lot of fasted workouts? Do you find you do better on certain workouts if you've got some food that you've eaten recently? How do you manage that?
I would say that I can work out a little bit better if it's like midday and I had a little bit of food, but I think it's more like just the weight and the volume of the food, and then it accompanying salt, you know, I think is a big factor. And again, if I just chug down a big thing of salt, I don't think it would be as effective. But the gain in that is fairly minimal, you know, and might sometimes even just be might even sometimes be mental. But I usually don't take anything before or after training a lot of times.
Let's talk. I know I've heard, I think I can remember who I heard talking with, maybe maybe it was Ed Cohen, talking about cramping up really bad. And that was obviously a lot of guys when they're bodybuilding, when they're getting really lean, have a lot of cramps. What has been your experience around cramping? Do you get them? How do you deal with them?
You know, I've been suffering from like leg cramps for a really, really long time. And, you know, a lot of this stuff is just like, you know, learning your body. I've learned that like if I'm cold at night, then for some reason I'm more susceptible to cramping. I'm not sure what the correlation is. Sometimes I might have to go to bed, and I run kind of hot anyway, so it's like kind of uncomfortable for me, but sometimes I got to throw on like sweatpants or something to get in bed. It depends on how much I trained my legs and things like that. So that has been one thing that has helped. But in addition to that, you know, really staying ahead of the hydration. And the other thing that's helped is just, you know, having things like you were mentioning, the electrolytes that you were taking in, like things like that can be beneficial. I don't have cramps really anymore. I don't get them anymore. And I've been running and squatting and like doing all kinds of stuff. And I think a lot of the weird stuff that you deal with in the beginning, like I used to kind of feel lightheaded, when I first started messing around with keto, and admittedly, I just probably wasn't eating enough either. Um, but like all those things they've completely subsided even when I don't eat that much food. So I think it's just a matter of your body, getting used to it and getting adjusted to it. I also think that a lot of times cramps can just happen just from your muscles just being extremely tight. So anybody that's really dealing with that and having a tough time with that, you might want to try to just a few minutes of stretching, just 2-3 minutes of stretching before you go to bed, I think would be beneficial.
Somebody's asking about alcohol on the diet. Do you think it has the same negative effects as eating a high carb, high fat diet? I know I occasionally have a glass of wine. I know I see you out with Andee at dinner sometimes. You have a glass of champagne. What are your thoughts on alcohol and diet?
One more thing I want to mention about the cramping that I forgot is, so sometimes if you have alcohol and you're on a low carb diet, and if you also start to eat some carbs, that's where I noticed a crazy amount of cramping. And that I would imagine has to do with the shift of where the water is going. But man, I've gotten some crazy cramps from that. So that might be something to be on the lookout for. If you're going to eat carbs, because they do suck up some water, you might have to drink a lot more water. In terms of booze, in terms of like just living your life and, like for me, people got all pissy at me the other day. I had a poke bowl and it had some vegetables in it, and people got all bent out of shape. And they're like, I thought you were on the carnivore diet. They kind of lost their mind. And I'm not cultish that way. If a piece of asparagus comes across my plate, I'm probably just going to eat it. I don't really care about it that much. I don't really enjoy it that much. But if it's going to fill me up a little bit more and I'm hungry, then I don't feel like I have any issues with like vegetables. And then in terms of like being social and living your life and having a good time, like I'm not afraid to have a drink here or there. But I'm not a big drinker by nature. I never really gotten that into it. So it's not something that appealing to me. And so I have to like kind of want to do it. We had a party the other day, and those are things that I think about a few days ahead of time. I'm like, okay, I'm almost like in a defensive stance, like I got my hands up. I'm like, all right, what the fuck's happening on Saturday? Like, what do we have going on? How do I control some of the elements of what's going to go on? And I'm even thinking about my food for the day. I'm like, okay, we're going to have a party and we're going to have a lot of really good food out, but it's our party. So we're still going to have a lot of meat and stuff like that. And so I'm making sure that I'm mainly eating that stuff, but I also take care of myself beforehand and eat. Sometimes I eat before I go out to a restaurant, things like that. But alcohol and just trying to keep your life less stressful. Like just fucking have some fun. Have a good time as much as you can, as long as it's not too much to the detriment of some of the goals that you have. But yeah, for me, that's been a huge thing for me, is like, if we're going to go out to eat somewhere, I usually eat a little bit beforehand, because I don't know what I'm going to get at the restaurant. And you only eat like 2 or 3 times a day, and you only eat meat. So you don't want to be grumpy about the meal. They overcook your burger or they overcook your meat or whatever. You don't want to be pissy about it. And if you ate already, you don't really care that much.
Hey, Mara, I saw recently you put up a post about, you said you were able to put on some size and strength and gain some weight on a carnivore diet. A lot of people ask me about it because a lot of people see it's very effective for weight loss, but I have a lot of people saying, how can I put on weight? How can I put on muscle? What has been your experience with that, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is or why, but it could just be like overall calories, I guess. But I brought in a lot of dairy. I brought in a good amount of dairy, and I brought in a little bit more butter and eggs. I ate a little bit more eggs, and that just made a huge difference. I was able to gain like 20 pounds in a really short period of time. And even here at the gym, everyone's like, dude, what the hell? Like, you just smacked on a bunch of weight. And I gained a little fat too. I got a little puffy from it. But I was making what I was calling krilk. I was taking cream and milk and just dumping them in one container and shaking it up. And it was heavy cream and milk, and I would go through one of those about every other day. I was really just smashing it. I just kind of wanted to see. I'm going to work on kind of experimenting a little bit more with the carnivore diet. I have a trip coming up to Mexico with my wife at the end of this week. When I get back from that, I plan on kind of messing around with it. I'm just really super curious about, counting calories and tracking them. And I would love to see what happens. I have some theories that I think that the calorie stuff, I think the amount of energy that you consume, I think it does matter. But I think that the way that we measure calories, I think is pretty jacked up. I think, lighting them on fire inside of a box or whatever way they do it, I don't think is equating all that well over into how it's reacting in individuals' bodies and stuff like that. But I would love to see if I was to eat like 5,000 or 6,000 calories, on a carnivore diet. I really don't think I would gain. I think I might gain weight for like a week or a couple days, and then I think it would subside. So something I plan on playing with. I'm sure if the amount of protein that you take in will matter a lot. And so that was something I was going to play with, and then hopefully, try to show the audience like, hey, like look at kind of like what this does. Look at some of the results. I'm not trying to sway anybody any particular way. I just want to kind of know for myself and then share that out with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, Mark, 'cause I've looked into this and I've talked to some of these, leading guys like Stuart Phillips and Jose Antonio, are the big protein researchers. And from a muscle building standpoint, it's basically, protein, amino acids, leucine, resistance training, and then it's caloric surplus for the most part. And so it can come from fat, it can come from carbs. I know Stan talks about it's easier to overeat carbs to get that. That's why, he's got guys eating rice, because it's easier to stimulate the appetite. But you can probably do some of that with fat. And then Jose Antonio talks about when you dial that protein way up, there's a point where you just don't gain any more body fat. I mean, it kind of tops you out when you get a protein. So I think it's going to kind of depend on, where you get your calories from, how much of it's protein, how much is fat. If you could probably eat 5,000, 6,000 calories a day. If it's mostly protein, you're probably going to reach a point where you gain a little and then you don't gain any more. And that's experience.
Still a lot of stuff still a lot of weird stuff that we don't know, like, when I made a post a few weeks ago about like drinking milk and cream and stuff like that. And a few comments were talking about the, how you don't absorb fat as well from dairy products. So it's like, I don't know, it's all just very interesting to me. So I'd love to just, kind of put it to the test and, have an N1 and just see what the results are.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Dave asking, so I used to live 30 years ago, back when, back in the day, I guess. The goal then was first to lose weight, then add muscle. Do you guys feel that still works, or do we need to, I'm more about toning. Do we think we need to lose weight first and then lift? So do you think you need to lose weight to get leaner and then lift to add muscle on, or just start lifting?
I think we can overcomplicate stuff very easily. And I think that, don't be fancy, just be consistent. And so you can kind of chase down more than one thing at a time. I think it's a little bit of a myth that you can't chase down two things at once, but you can chase down several things at one time. It's just that they just can't conflict with each other. It would be a mistake to try to really add a lot of size and to try to get ripped at the same time. But you can, especially if you haven't really weight trained in a long time, you can certainly lift weights and work on, keep it as it'll be advantageous to you, because, gaining that muscle mass will help you consume more calories, so it'll be to your advantage to work on both things. And I don't think there's a reason to like try to lose weight before you go stepping in the gym.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, unless you're already like, super lean, that's, it's hard to make a difference one way or the other. You either got to pick strength or you got to pick getting leaner. And I think for the most people, and probably most people in the audience here, you can put on muscle and lose body fat, particularly if you have a lot of body fat to lose, because it's not until you get to the really edges where then you really have to do these kind of crazy things.
Well, and you'll even just look bigger. Like you could be, someone listening right now could be, 280 pounds, and they try the carnivore diet and they lose 30 pounds, but they've had a decent discipline in the gym with their training. And people will say, hey man, like, what have you been doing for your shoulders? They look crazy. Your shoulders look big, but you lost, 50 pounds or whatever. So a lot of times a lot of times people can't see what you got going on under there until you drop the body fat down.
Yeah, I'm just, this is one thing that I see, you know, obviously I get a little bit of the same thing, probably and more so than you do, but are you getting a lot of pushback from people because you've been promoting the carnivore diet? I know you and I have kind of talked a little bit about, you know, guys that are all about calories, Lane Norton and so on and so forth. I know you said, hey, I think there's more to it, or I think there's reason that that's not the best strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm trying my best not to give a shit really, because something I kind of have recognized in myself, and maybe you end up being guilty of this as well sometimes. I really do want to help people, and I think that in my mission to help people, I sometimes get pissed when they don't agree with me, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really make any sense. I want to help people, but I don't want to necessarily turn them into me. And I don't want to live in an echo chamber either. I would like to know the truth about nutrition. I would like to find out more information, so it can be hard because people can get really inflamed and inflammatory towards you. But, I'm trying my best to, be more understanding. Some of the comments sometimes, they're so like over the top, where it's just like they don't really warrant a response. But sometimes I just find myself, I can't help myself. I end up, wanting to protect myself and wanting to protect my beliefs. But I've been working on it lately to try to not to, force people to believe in what I believe. But also at the same time, like just saying, hey, look, here's the information. Here's what I've found. Here's what works well for me. Here's what's working well for a lot of other people. And I think that you can enjoy the benefits. I can't imagine, and I don't know if you run into this at all. I have not seen anyone try the carnivore diet and have it not work. I've seen people fail with the carnivore diet and not have a good time with trying it. And maybe they don't love meat that much, and it just um, didn't fit their lifestyle, didn't fit their personality very well. And they didn't have success with it because they weren't able to really do it. But I haven't seen anybody not end up with great results from it.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, the vast majority of people seem to get pretty good results. Not everybody gets exactly what they want all the time. You know, some people will struggle a little bit with weight loss. I see that's being the biggest challenge, but the vast majority of people seem to lose weight, get healthier, feel better. And even the people that are struggling with weight loss, you ask them, why are you still doing it? And they say, well, it's because I feel so much better. And I think there's obviously something there. I mean, clearly giving up all the junk food, all the stuff that, you know, that's out there that tastes good and everybody wants us to eat and it's marketed to. I mean, giving that stuff up is tough, but once you do it, it works, pretty remarkably well. And I think that's a good statement on what's wrong with the food system overall. I think, Mark, I don't want to teach too much time. Somebody asked for you to give your thoughts on the coronavirus. I don't know if you want to wade into that.
I think the carnivore diet will fix it.
Well, it's interesting. We do know that cholesterol, LDL cholesterol in particular, can protect us from infection. I mean, there's some studies out there that show that. So that may be a strategy to deal with that is to not be weak and frail. That's the best way to prevent succumbing to an illness if you get the virus. Obviously, not washing your hands, and
right.
As we get so many people packed into cities and buses and planes,
right.
That's not natural. You're going to be at the Arnold. Somebody says they hope to run into you there. Yeah, you got it. When is the Arnold? It's like it's coming up, isn't it? Pretty soon, the Arnold thing.
Yeah, I forget the date, but yeah, it's coming up pretty soon, and we'll be out there doing some podcasts and stuff. And yeah, I'm hoping to run into some fans for sure.
What do you have coming up, Mark? I know you got so many things going on. Any big things you're kind of interested or excited about that's coming? I know you and Chris have been doing a little carnivore stuff. What's new for Mark Bell, or what's coming up?
The Arnold Classic is one of them. I know I have a seminar out there. Andrew, do you have any idea what the what the date is on that? I forget but we'll get that to you in a second. But yeah, I have a seminar out there that I'm excited about. and going to Mexico with the wifey at the end of this week. That'll be fun. A friend of ours is getting married. It's a, I always find it really cool, like just the different friends that we have and how resourceful you can be when you really put your mind to it and you think about the people that you have in your corner. This girl that we're going to her wedding, she helped save my brother's life because she was the one that gave us direction towards getting my brother help, and getting him into detox and stuff like that. And it's remarkable, when you think if people stop for a second and pause and think about the people that they have close to them that care about them, you could really find a lot of great people in your corner that can help with a lot of things. I can call you at any time and ask you questions about the diet. And my aunt has been impacted, my cousin Steven, as you know, and I mean, it's just been amazing. But yeah, I got a bunch of shit I'm always looking forward to. I just look forward to every day, really. I have a bunch of things that are set on the schedule, but I try not to even look at that because it's just every day is full with a bunch of crap. So I try not to look at it, but I just try to, rev up and get energy for each day.
Yeah. So Mark will be in Columbus starting Friday, March 6th through the 8th. And we're actually doing a strong seminar at C-Bus Gym in Columbus, Ohio.
Cool.
Well, Andrew, thanks for chiming in. Andrew, good to see hearing you again. Anyway, Mark, thank you so much. Amanda, Leah, Mark, I think Andrew, they want to maybe get some of the video of this. They might want to use it. I'm not sure. Can we make sure we get it to them after we record it and stuff and send them a copy? We will. Okay, cool.
I think we might have everything.
Yeah,
already.
we're all good. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are recording too. Okay, well, never mind. You guys know how to do that better than I do. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I want to be respectful for your time. We've been going an hour. It's been wonderful. Appreciate it. Look forward to continued working with you. And folks, thanks for joining in. Thanks for the questions. Anyway, any last things to say, Mark, and then I'll end it for everybody.
No, just kind of in finishing up, anyone that is struggling with the diet. I know people get on the diet, get off the diet. They're kind of on the fence. Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? You should do it. You should give it a shot. You should give it a try and just fill yourself up with food. Anytime you have cravings, anytime you're like, shit, man, I'm really hungry, just eat, eat meat, eat eggs, eat bacon, whatever foods that you really enjoy that are carnivorous, just do it, man. Just smash the food. And it's helped me a ton, just smash those cravings away by just stuffing your fat face until you can't handle it anymore. And eventually you will start, over a period of time, some of those cravings and stuff like that will go down, especially when you're eating a good amount of protein. Anybody that wants to follow along more stuff from me, you can check out Mark Bell's Power Project. In addition to that, you can check out markbell.com, which has all the information on how I'm dieting and has information on how I'm training and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
And most importantly, strength is never.
Yeah, strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Take care. I'm going to end it. Bye, guys.
Bye.